The Wisconsin Badgers have finally joined modern football and really hit the NIL angle with the transfer portal. How much better will the Badgers be? Well, they got Colton Joseph, a bevy of defensive linemen, some talented skill players. I'm finally excited about the Badgers.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We're going to be discussing all things Badgers, and at the end of the show, something that I did not anticipate: defensive linemen in numbers. Wisconsin went out and bolstered their defensive line room and, honestly, their defense in general through the transfer portal. Skill talent. Wisconsin, outside the numbers, this is something I've talked about quite a few times on Ryan Herring's show. It's not been good outside the numbers. The last several years, they were bludgeoned. Teams would force Wisconsin into some very awkward third and longs on a consistent basis. They'd bring their corners up, challenge them, and Wisconsin couldn't do much about it. They brought in some talented receivers like Shamar Rigby. That's going to change. We're also going to talk about, first and foremost, Colton Joseph, how I think with the combination of players that they're going to be surrounding him with, including the returning players for the Badgers, this is going to be an offense that can be dynamic at times. I did not see that. I did not have Wisconsin as dynamic on my bingo card. But like I mentioned, Shamar Rigby, among others, they have some players, Brian Jackson, et cetera, coming in that I'm familiar with from the high school ranks that are now going to be headed to Madison to play for the Badgers. And let's start with that. If you take nothing else from this podcast, note the following. Wisconsin's going to have some games this next season that's going to be surprising to many outside the realm of the Big Ten or even just the Wisconsin fan base, because they're going to put up some points. I didn't think that was going to be the case, especially after all the horrific offensive production the last couple of years. It could be massively different. So let's dive into the numbers for Colton Joseph and talk a little bit about why I think it's that way. First off, just to put it in perspective, Indiana just won the national title. Before I even put up the notes and the questions I have on the screen, how many times do you think Indiana gave up 182 yards rushing in the last 2 years under Signetti to one player? Well, it's one guy, Colton Joseph. That's impressive. He is a very dynamic runner. If you miss a run gap fit or he breaks a tackle, he has the athleticism to go the distance. And he's also a young man that can roll out and throw it against the grain. He's right-handed. He will throw going left and put it on a line. He has the athleticism to challenge you that way. So DBs aren't automatically going to just come up and play run when he breaks contain and he's outside the pocket. He is a true dual threat. And Wisconsin just doesn't have guys like that. And I know Wisconsin's been absolutely chaotic on offense, much to the chagrin of everybody that roots for the Badgers because of quarterback injuries. There's no doubt about that. But they still didn't have somebody as physically gifted as Colton Joseph the last couple of seasons. And to be honest with you, I think Wisconsin fans deserve a little bit of that. So to that end, let's talk a little bit about Colton Joseph and what I think is going to be a very interesting season. But to maximize, I have 4 questions, and here they are. Improved passing accuracy. This past season, he played at Old Dominion. He's 6'2", roughly 205 pounds. This is a young man that completed just under 60% of his passing. He was 173 of 291, 59.5%, 2006, 2,629 yards, 9 yards per attempt, which is pretty good. 21 touchdowns, but 10 picks. So he took some chances. And I looked at his Pro Football Focus numbers. In particular, he struggled a little bit in the middle of the field. Now, many guys do. But if he's going to improve accuracy, that has to be part of it. Post-snap reads, understanding the players he has. And I don't know a ton about Old Dominion. I'm not going to sit here and say that I do. But if he has the ability to throw down the middle of the field and not just throw up jump balls to Rigby, Dominguez, or Domingo, however you pronounce. He's a Louisiana kid. You never know. They've got two guys that can go get it that are big body guys. I mean, Rigby's roughly 6'4". The other kid, he's 6'2", 210. They're going to be able to do that. But can they get those guys in the middle of the field, and can the accuracy improve there? That's going to be very, very important. Number two, I already talked about it. Wisconsin's not been able to keep a quarterback healthy. If they don't, it's not going to go well. So he's going to run. He's probably going to run some quarterback counter. He's probably going to run some quarterback draw. He's definitely going to take off when they blitz and they get outside their containment. If he's able to stay healthy, it completely changes Wisconsin's record in 2026. But if he is not healthy, you're kind of back in that same boat. There's just no shortcut here. That's why the rules are the way they are, not just in college, but especially in the pros. You can say whatever you want, but ratings completely change when quarterbacks are in the game that everybody wants to see. That's just true. That's why all these different rules are there. But for Wisconsin, looking at it specifically, you're talking about a guy that on every play, the opposing defensive coordinator has to account for him as a potential runner, especially on 3rd down / 4th down and short yardage scenarios, even red zone. When you get inside that 20, he can score. So I think they have to balance putting him in harm's way, because Big Ten, no offense to Old Dominion, is way different with that. And then after that, when you get guys coming up, seeing run of those play actions, downfield passing. There's a reason, and my third question is just simply downfield passing, question mark. He was okay at it, but his percentage for on passes over 20 yards or more was not the greatest. It's a little bit lacking. But again, you've got some guys that can go get it, and we'll talk about the receivers and all those players in a second. And finally, just decision-making. I talked to a lot of different recruits, guys going into college, some are still in college. I tell kids all the time, the best plays that you make are oftentimes sacks, throwaways, or you audible out of a pass. Now, young quarterbacks are probably, what are you talking about? Sometimes it's better to live to play another down. He didn't always do that. His running was fantastic in general for statistics, but he did have one catastrophe number. He ran 145 times this past season for 1,097 yards and 7.6 yards per total, 13 scores. That's awesome. But he had 12 fumbles, including 7 fumbles in his last 5 games. Again, you have to give and get. Like, he was 36.9% on passes over 20 yards, and then the fumbles. Those are the two areas in particular. Downfield shots, middle of the field in particular, and then just being more conscious with his ball protection. Like, you can't go one hand in the pocket or not tuck the ball when you're running. Like, little things that I know that coaches at Old Dominion, even 7th grade coaches at random high schools, they're going to teach it. He has to be better at it. He has to be better. There's no way around it. So let's see what happens with that. But if Colton Joseph is able to get back to the point where he's consistent throwing the ball, he's consistently protecting the football, Wisconsin, like minimum, they should win at 7 games next year. Minimum. And if, everybody says, the schedule's still not easy. It's easier than it was. And they just not been very good in close games because they let them get away from them by throwing the football to the wrong team, by being terrible on 3rd downs, red zone opportunities squandered, you name it. Wisconsin's offense has been terrible. Just Joseph by himself should really amp up, to be honest, the fan base, because they just haven't had a guy like that. When we come back, I want to talk about the running backs they're bringing in. They got some really good receivers, skill talent for Wisconsin, guys outside the numbers. I can see Ryan Herrings now jumping up and down excited because I'm talking about Wisconsin skill guys in a positive manner. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside of the FanDuel app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets that you personally like the best. I have one that I think is very, very interesting. I don't know how it's going to play out, but the Denver versus New England situation is very unique. You got Stidham, obviously hasn't started, in a couple of years. But then you have Drake May on the other side. How do you look at those guys individually? Is New England going to pull back because they don't think that Denver's going to score much? Does Stidham surprise people? That's something that I think is interesting. If you're going to apply one of these profit boosts, I think either of those quarterbacks is pretty intriguing. Make your picks how you see fit. Visit FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL game day. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day. I do these live shows almost every single weekday at noon Eastern. Every now and then I'm on the road scouting or doing something with 7-on-7 with Coastline, but we have a lot of fun. And to make it better, if you're going to take it on the road with you, you're going to listen to it later, you can get your audio downloads for free. Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, Apple, wherever you get your pods. The Everydayer Club allows you to do that. $5 a month or $50 for the year. And there's a Discord. Just check it out in the description down below. There's a link. It'll give you more details. Let's talk a little bit about something I don't normally say. Wisconsin having exciting skill players coming in. They spent the NIL. Give them some credit. And they did a pretty good job of getting a nice balance of running backs, like a couple of bigger guys. One guy's got a little shake, different levels of eligibility. They're trying to balance their roster. So with that, I'll give them credit. They needed to do it, and they did. Abu Sama, the third out of Iowa State, is probably my favorite because I just like how he breaks tackles and he's not afraid of anything. 5'11", 210. He had 140 carries last year for the Cyclones, 738 yards, 5.3 yards per tote, and 5 scores. They had a two-back system. Carson Hansen, the other kid that ended up transferring to Penn State, that pretty good group right there. If he's your guy, or even maybe he's number two, we'll see how it goes. You're in a pretty good spot. Brian Jackson hasn't had the career I thought he would at SC, played 2 years there. Another big guy, he's 5'11", and I would guess they listed him at 6 foot. At 235, he only averaged 3.5 yards a carry last year, but had 4 touchdowns. He's a power player. He's a kid out of the greater Dallas area. He's got some talent. And then Nate Palmer, he played at TCU. A little different. He's just under 200 pounds. He's got a few years of eligibility left. He's a kid that adds to the room as well. So they're pretty good there. A couple of guys that I really like at receiver. Shamar Rigby. I knew him when he grew up in the St. Petersburg area because I was in Tampa at the time. Last year for Oak State, 25 catches, 351 yards, 14 yards per and a score. And then Jaylon Domingeaux, Southeast Louisiana, 6'2", 210. He's proven. He started as a freshman for them. And then this past season, 52 catches, 857 yards, 16 and a half and 11 scores. And here's the really important stat for Jaylon. They threw the ball to him 20 times where the ball traveled 20 or more yards in the air before making contact. He caught 50% of those. 398 yards, 39.8 per reception, and 4 scores. Having him and Rigby outside will change what you have to do defensively to make it work. Either you've got true NFL corners, or you're going to be in a situation you're guessing and you're taking a lot of risk. Maybe you still are, because those guys can go get it. Now, they got a couple other kids, got some size, like Malachi Coleman, played in Nebraska and Minnesota. Hasn't been as exciting in terms of their production, but they have some size. Like Kearney, he played sparingly the last couple of years. He's 6'1", 207. Coleman, 6'5", 210. If they can get anything out of those guys to add with what they have, they're in a pretty good spot. Tight end, 2 pretty good players. Jacob Harris out of Bowling Green, 6'4", 255. Primarily a power guy, but he did have 19 catches for 182 yards. And he came out there with 5 touchdowns. Red zone guy. Hey, I'll take it. Ryan Schwindeman out of Southern Illinois, 6'5", 245, 15 catches, 191 yards, 12.7, and 2 scores. So that was the good news there. Skill talent, they've improved a lot on offense. I'm going to come back to offensive line here in a few minutes. But looking at the secondary, talking about skill as well. Javan Robinson, Arizona State. He's a kid from Orlando, played over 1,300 snaps the last 2 seasons. He's been a starter for Arizona State, 84.4 grade for tackling. That means he's good on screens in the run game. Coverage grade, 67.9. That's a valuable guy. And they added Kai Bates, a kid that I know, another Orlando kid, played at Florida State the last couple of years, didn't really crack into the lineup. They had pretty good talent at Florida State in the secondary. Bryce West, a highly recruited kid from Ohio State, 5'11", 197 pounds. Then Eric Fletcher, a kid, 6'1", 180 pounds. Probably a backup, but that's as good a 4-man group as you're going to get probably at a school like Wisconsin. That's very well noted. They needed more talent outside. They went, and they got it. As for what's going to happen with who's going to start in the secondary, what coverages they're going to run, I at least look at this as a perspective of Wisconsin has the opportunity to be more aggressive, play more man or squat on routes, maybe creep the safeties up a little more because you're going to have more talent at corner and you could rotate more. So that's the good news. I think that will give them a chance, especially against the mid-level, like again, those close games where it's one score, you make that one extra PBU or just deny the quarterback a window and he just throws it away or gets sacked. That's different in a lot of Big Ten games. Wisconsin hasn't had a lot of guys like that. So which ones will it be? I don't know. But I think that they're in a much better spot. Now, I'm not sure if Wisconsin fans are sure which players are their favorites yet. I've got my own thoughts on a few different guys. But mostly the big thing for me is they got the numbers and it'll bear itself out. It'll bear itself out. There aren't a ton of players you're just going to guarantee yourself with. I don't care if it's Ohio State, Texas, or anybody else. You still got Fid and all that. But Wisconsin brought in enough guys that have some proven production and plenty with upside as well. You should expect some of these guys at corner, running back, receiver, again, spots where they haven't always been dynamic the last few years. Somebody's going to hit. If that's not exciting to you, I don't know what is. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the defensive line, a little concern about the offensive line, and then get into the chat a little bit and have some fun. That is next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by TurboTax, and tax season doesn't have to take over your life. First few months of the year, always thinking about, hey, I got to do my taxes, blah, blah, blah. It's not fun, but take a little bit off your plate because this year TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day and not having to worry about getting all that tax stuff done on your own. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress of getting everything organized and guessing on whether you actually turned in everything and got all the money back that you deserve. Instead of spending hours trying to figure it out, all the forms, W-2s, 1099s, whatever it may be, TurboTax is there for you. For a limited time, you can also get your taxes done by a local expert for $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't do your filing last year, just file your taxes by the 28th with TurboTax. Take the taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book an appointment with TurboTax today. All right. Thank you once again for checking out the Portal Podcast here on a noon on a Friday. Let's talk some linemen. This is where Wisconsin should be good, right? Well, defensive line, they've had some guys. Came about it different ways, walk-ons, O-line to D-line. They figured it out in different ways. But it's starting to look like they're getting the drift that, hey, if we could just get a couple of portal guys, it's going to matter too. So a couple of defensive linemen that I was kind of intrigued by. In particular, Justice Boone. Now, this is a hard one to grade. I'm just curious how it will go. 441 snaps, 6'4", 278 pounds. Played at Arkansas. Pretty good sized guy. 13 pressures, a couple sacks, had 10 stops per PFF. How much of his production was limited because the defensive staff at Arkansas and that team chemistry was so bad last year? I imagine if it's good chemistry this year at Wisconsin, he could start to turn things around for them. Junior Poyser out of Buffalo, 6'1", 310. Always good to get big fellas. Didn't start till the fifth game, but started to make some noise after that. 24 pressures, 5 sacks, and 22 stops. Again, you can't teach 310. That's a really good sign. Nigel Cooper, nice backup, 6'3", 260. He had multiple starts. He had 18 pressures, a sack, 9 stops. And then Hammond Russell, kid that played at West Virginia, another massive kid, 6'3", 312, 226 snaps, 3 pressures, 2 sacks, 7 stops. That's pretty good. The one thing I'm concerned about, and this is so odd to say, offensive line, it took 5, but they lost Bruner, the kid going to Indiana, really good player. Blake Cherry's a kid that comes over from Arkansas, barely played last year as a freshman. Lucas Simmons, kids that I'm familiar with, scouted him in high school, and I cover Florida State for the network and run Locked On Seminoles, but he didn't crack the lineup the first 3 years in Tallahassee. They don't have a whole lot there on the edges or even guard that I know much about, but what I do know is Austin Kowecki, the center for Oklahoma State, he's a pretty good player. Should be plug and play, 76.8 as a pass protector per PFF last year. Played 710 snaps. He was the Oklahoma State center. anytime you get somebody that's used to making line calls, that's played at the P4 level as a starter, as an O lineman, you probably achieve something there. Need to see how some of the other guys turn out. And I haven't dug into all the film and everything, but I'm curious. That's my one concern here out of this class. And it's almost the same for every team, by the way. There are hardly any teams that do quote unquote well with offensive linemen. There just aren't that many good ones in the portal. For every 3 you take, you'll be lucky to get one that's really that good. The really good ones stick around or they turn pro early. That's ask LSU. Both their tackles heading into 2025 had turned pro a year early, and it derailed LSU's 2025 season. So with that, I'm going to ask a few questions here, and then I'm going to jump into the chat. Number one, if you're a Wisconsin fan, what is your expectation for a 2026 record? Right now, I think they should win 7 or 8 games. Right in there. Kind of need to see a little more film. I want to talk to Ryan Herrings. I'm sure I'll do a crossover with him, but that's kind of where I'm at. Number two, if you think about just the offense, again, Colton Joseph, we're not sure about O-line, but they got a good offensive group at the skill spots for sure. Got a starting center, and obviously the bar is very low. They were terrible on offense, but can they average 27, 28 points a game? I could see that. Can they dominate a lot of the teams? Let's say out of the bottom 6 teams they play talent-wise, can they score over 30 in at least half those games? They should. What is your expectation for the offense in terms of points per game? And then the final question, I think they'll finally be better in closer games, especially offensively. I do. I think that's very important because like they were frustrating, even in some of the games they won. Like they had to pull it out with defense, special teams, a little bit of luck, other teams shooting themselves in the foot. They need to be more explosive. Like they played great on defense against UW last year. Quarterback situation I get was goofy, but they just couldn't come up with anything. I think they need to be more dynamic, which they should be, but especially I'd like to see them on 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s. Hey, you got nothing to lose. Take some shots. Do you think Wisconsin in some of those close games will be the team that shocks you and goes up top? Maybe a few more trick plays. They'll open the playbook. I'm also curious about that. So let me see what we got in the chat here today. And thank you to everybody for coming in. Katie, what's going on? A common quarterback decision mistake is not taking their checkdowns, 100%. Brady Quinn said this recently. He said when he played at Notre Dame or in the NFL, he wanted to look deep to short. He said, yeah, you're smarter to look short to deep. And that's probably sage advice. Phil Simms, great quarterback for the New York Giants, Super Bowl winner, said the most important way to pad your stats is what Katie's talking about right here. Checkdowns. 5 to 7 yards, put yourself in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3. Good things will happen. Kevin Wills. Who's the better route runner? I couldn't tell you. Like that's long, deep film study. And I don't have a lot of Southeastern Louisiana film, but that kid started as a freshman there. I know it's not FBS P4, but if you started as a freshman somewhere, you got to be pretty good at it. I would imagine it's him. When I saw Rigby coming out of high school, he was raw, but like he was 6'3", something like that. As a sophomore, he kind of stopped growing. He didn't get much bigger after sophomore year of high school, but he's a guy that take it off your head. If he figures out route running with his size and his frame, he'll be really good at it. Dimitri, I know not all of our new receivers are proven, but I'm super excited to see them play. And I've seen Joseph stay healthy enough we can throw to them. Yeah, I agree. Like you finally have a quarterback and get the ball outside. All right. Brian, what's your early score prediction for Wisconsin versus Notre Dame and Lambeau? I mean, Notre Dame by double digits. I mean, they'll be a top 5 team, but I think the game will be a lot closer. Originally, I thought that game was going to be like 41-10, 41-14. I think it's more like 38 to 21 or something like that. Wisconsin's got enough players now. They'll cause some problems for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's firepower is still too much. They'll be a top 5 team offensively in college football next year. There are a lot of potential in the receiver room, but a lot of it is unproven. Who are your favorites? Well, I know Rigby, so I'm going to go with him. The kid from Southeast Louisiana, Domingeaux, like production is there. I'll pull up his stats again just to give them to you. You just can't go wrong. When a kid starts as a freshman, that's a sign. This past year, he's 6'2", 210, 52 catches, 857 yards, 16 and a half, and 11 scores. Look, that's outstanding. And his deep ball, he was 39.8 on passes over 20 yards. 4 scores. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for every single time. He's probably got a chance to play in the NFL. Katie, when Bielema was at Wisconsin, they always had good offensive lines. Right now, that's a concern. Let's see. From what we've heard, Bruner leaving was mutual. Really? That's interesting. Dominic, 8-4 is your projection. Okay. I don't disagree. It's possible. If they have a little luck with health and they win the close games, it's possible. Why not? Joseph will help in closer games. Just a pain in the butt for defenses. Absolutely. No DC likes going up against the mobile quarterback. None. Zero zip, none, nada. And I don't blame them. They're not fun. They're not fun at all. So that gives Wisconsin an edge. Good thing the portal got over before it was minus 40 in Wisconsin. Well, it's I live in Alabama, and there's concerns down here right now. So I can only imagine what y'all are dealing with, but it's wild. Like the weather in the United States of America. Just wait 5 minutes. Almost anywhere it can really change. It is wild. So thank you very much for checking out the portal on a Friday. Wisconsin's headed in the right direction, obviously, and several other programs, to be honest, are really starting to make some noise and change things with their programs. Look at Indiana, look at Vanderbilt. It's amazing what the transfer portal has done, especially if you hit at that quarterback position. Look at Vandy, Diego Pavia. That's incredible. How about that guy, Trinidad Chambliss, from a Division II school, Ferris State, heading to Ole Miss? There are so many things that can happen in 1 year. It's really exciting with the transfer portal. Thank you once again for checking out the Portal Podcast. We will see you again soon.